The harmonious explorer drifted silently through the dark void of space, its sleek hull reflecting the distant stars. Inside the vessel, Captain Velthar moved through the corridor with graceful steps, his long neck swaying gently as he checked the status displays. Everything had been perfect for the past 6 months of their survey mission. The ship hummed with peaceful efficiency, just as it had for the 20 years since its construction. The Galactic Council had sent them to map this distant sector, far from the central stations where most civilized species lived and worked together in harmony. Velthar's species, the Nera, had evolved on a world of endless plains and gentle rains. Predators had never existed on their home planet. The concept of violence was something they only understood from ancient historical records of accidents and natural disasters. The same was true for every species in the Galactic Council. 8,000 years of peace across 17 different races, all living together without conflict or war. The captain entered the bridge and settled into his command chair, wrapping his tail around the base for stability. His chief scientist, a floating jellyfish-like being named Polvas, bobbed near the sensor station. The creature's translucent body pulsed with soft blue light as it processed the data streaming across the displays. "Captain, we are approaching the gravity well," Polvas announced in its singing voice. "Readings are normal. We should complete our scans within 3 hours." Velthar nodded his approval. This gravity well was the last major feature in this sector. Once they mapped it, they could begin the long journey home. He thought about seeing his family again, sharing stories of the beautiful nebulas and strange asteroid fields they had discovered. It would be good to return to civilization. The ship moved closer to the gravity well, its sensors reaching out to measure and record. Everything seemed routine until the entire vessel suddenly shuddered. Warning alarms filled the bridge with urgent sounds. Velthar gripped his chair as the ship shook violently. "What is happening?" he called out, his voice high with fear. Polvas worked frantically at the controls. "The gravity well. The readings were wrong. It's much stronger than our sensors indicated. Something is pulling us in." The harmonious explorer groaned as invisible forces stressed its hull. More alarms joined the chorus. The ship's engineer, a small furry creature named Tix Lip, appeared on the communication screen, her whiskers trembling with panic. "Captain, the engines are failing. Whatever this gravity source is, it's too powerful. We're being crushed." Velthar felt his heart's racing. In all his years of service, nothing like this had ever happened. Council ships were built to last forever, to explore safely, to never face danger. They had no weapons, no armor, no emergency combat systems. Why would they need such things in a peaceful galaxy? "Cut the engines, release all cargo. Anything to reduce our mass," Velthar ordered. The crew worked desperately, but the ship continued to be pulled deeper into the anomaly. Systems began failing one by one. Life support indicators turned from green to yellow, then to red. Oxygen production slowed to dangerous levels. Polvas turned to the captain, its body now pulsing with frightened purple light. "Captain, at this rate, we have maybe 4 days of breathable air. Maybe less. 4 days." Velthar's mind raced. The nearest council ship was 2 weeks away, even at maximum speed. They would never arrive in time. His crew would suffocate slowly, aware of every moment as the air grew thinner and thinner. "Send out the distress beacon," Velthar said quietly. Tix Lip activated the emergency beacon, a device that had never been used in the ship's entire service history. The signal pulsed out into the void, carrying a simple message in mathematical language that any spacefaring species should understand. "Help. Dying. Please, come." The beacon traveled through space at the speed of light, spreading outward in all directions. It passed through empty systems and dead worlds. It crossed vast distances where no one lived or traveled. The crew of the harmonious explorer waited, knowing that hope was fading with every breath they took. 3 sectors away, Commander Jack Morrison sat in the captain's chair of the UNS Valiant, reviewing supply reports. The human vessel was on patrol duty. A routine assignment, that mostly involved checking on mining operations and escorting cargo ships. Jack was a veteran of 15 years in the United Nations Space Fleet, with gray starting to show in his dark hair. He had seen action in the colony wars and the asteroid pirate conflicts. He knew what real danger looked like. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan, the communications officer, suddenly sat up straight at her station. "Commander, I'm picking up something strange. It's not on any of our standard frequencies." Jack looked up from his reports. "What kind of something?" "A distress signal, sir. But it's unlike anything in our database. The language is completely unknown, but there are mathematical patterns. Someone is in serious trouble." "Sir." Jack moved to her station and studied the displays. The signal was faint, but unmistakable. Someone out there was dying and calling for help. He made his decision in seconds. "Calculate the source location. How far?" Kate worked quickly. 3 days, at maximum burn, sir. It's coming from an uncharted sector. Set course immediately. Maximum speed. Send out a general alert to all UN ships in the region. Someone needs help, and we're going to give it to them." Within an hour, 17 human ships had changed course and were burning hard toward the source of the distress signal. They came from different patrol routes, different assignments, different purposes, but they all heard the same call for help, and they all responded without hesitation. On the bridge of the Harmonious Explorer, Polvus detected the incoming ships 3 days later. The creature's body flashed with confused colors as it processed the sensor data. "Captain, ships approaching. Multiple contacts. But they're moving so fast. How is this possible?" Velthar pulled himself to the sensor station, weak from breathing the thin air. His vision blurred as he looked at the readings. 17 ships, all burning toward them at speeds that should have torn apart any normal vessel. What kind of species could build such ships? What kind of beings would push their technology so hard just to answer a distress call from strangers? The lead ship, the one called Valiant, slowed as it approached and began broadcasting. The translation systems struggled with the language, but eventually, words formed on the display. "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Jack Morrison of the United Nations Space Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to help. Please respond if you can." Velthar stared at the message, his tired mind struggling to understand. They came. Strangers from an unknown species had crossed 3 days of space at dangerous speeds just to help. Why? With shaking hands, he activated the communication system and sent a simple reply in the mathematical language. "We are dying. Please, hurry." On the Valiant, Jack Morrison smiled grimly as he read the response. "All ships. Prepare, rescue, and repair teams. We've got people to save." The airlock of the Harmonious Explorer hissed open, and Captain Velthar felt every muscle in his body tense with fear. Through the opening came figures in bulky white suits, moving with purpose and speed that seemed almost aggressive. The humans had arrived, and despite his desperate need for their help, every instinct in Velthar's body screamed at him to run. Commander Jack Morrison stepped through first, his helmet's faceplate reflecting the dim emergency lights of the alien ship. Through the clear material, Velthar could see the human's face, forward-facing eyes that locked onto targets with predatory focus. A strong jaw that spoke of powerful bite force. Thick bones and heavy muscles, built for combat and survival. This was a creature designed by evolution to hunt and kill. Jack raised one hand slowly, palm outward, keeping his movements calm and deliberate. He had seen the way the alien captain had flinched when the airlock opened. These beings were terrified, and Jack understood why. Humans looked dangerous, because they were dangerous. But looking dangerous and being cruel were two very different things. "Captain Velthar," Jack spoke slowly, letting the translation software do its work. "I'm Commander Morrison. We're here to fix your ship and save your crew. May we begin?" Velthar swallowed hard and managed a weak nod. He watched as more humans entered, each one carrying equipment and moving with that same efficient intensity. One human approached him directly, smaller than Morrison but moving with gentle confidence. "Captain, I'm Amy Hughes, medical officer," the human said, her voice somehow softer through the translator. "You're suffering from oxygen deprivation. I need to examine you and your crew. May I? May I?" Something in her tone cut through Velthar's fear. There was genuine concern there, real worry for his well-being. He nodded again and allowed her to attach a small device to his chest. The medical scanner beeped softly as it analyzed his condition. Amy frowned at the readings. "You're in bad shape, Captain. You all are. How long has the oxygen been this low?" 3 days, Velthar answered, his voice barely a whisper. "Okay, we're going to fix this. Danny," Amy called out to another human. "How long until life support is running?" A young human male covered in grease and carrying a toolbox looked up from where he was examining an access panel. Danny Clark had been working non-stop since boarding, his hands moving with practiced skill over the alien systems. "Give me 4 hours for basic function, maybe 8 for full capacity," Danny replied. "These systems are completely different from ours, but the principles are the same. I can work with this." Jack Morrison moved through the ship with 6 other crew members, assessing the damage. The Harmonious Explorer was dying slowly, its systems failing one after another. But it was repairable. Everything was repairable if you had the right people and enough determination. In the engine room, Danny worked alongside 2 other human engineers. They barely spoke to each other, communicating through hand signals and shared understanding born from years of training together. When one needed a tool, another passed it before being asked. When a system needed power, someone was already rerouting it. Velthar watched in amazement from the doorway, still accompanied by Amy, who refused to let him exert himself. The humans worked with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. How did they know what each other needed? How did they move together so perfectly? "It's called training, Captain," Amy explained, noticing his confusion. "We practice together constantly. We learn to think like each other, to anticipate needs. When lives are at stake, there's no time for long discussions." "But why?" Velthar asked. "You don't know us. You've never seen our species before today. Why push yourselves so hard for strangers?" Amy was quiet for a moment, considering the question. Then she smiled, though Velthar couldn't quite interpret the expression. "Because you needed help. What other reason do we need?" Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out. Human crew members shared their own oxygen supplies with alien crew members who were struggling to breathe. They set up temporary life support units in areas where the ship's systems had completely failed. They worked in shifts, resting only when forced to by their commanders, always keeping fresh crews on the critical repairs. Kate Sullivan established a direct communication link between the Valiant and the Harmonious Explorer, allowing real-time coordination of the rescue effort. She worked with Polvas, the jellyfish-like scientist, to bridge the gap between their different technologies. "Your translation systems are impressive," Polvas observed, its body pulsing with curious green light. "How long did it take you to develop such sophisticated language processing?" "About 100 years of active research," Kate replied. "We had to. Humans speak thousands of different languages back home. We learned early that communication was survival." "Thousands?" Polvas seemed shocked. "But you are one species. How can you have so many languages?" Kate laughed. "We're one species, but we come from different regions, different cultures, different histories. We had to learn to talk to each other before we could reach the stars. It wasn't easy, but it made us better at this." She gestured to the communication displays, showing human and alien systems working together. Hours passed. The human crews rotated in and out, but the work never stopped. Danny Clark finally emerged from the engine room, his face exhausted but triumphant. "Life support is online, Commander," he reported to Jack. "Oxygen production is at 80% and climbing." They'll be breathing easy within the hour. Jack nodded his approval. Outstanding work, Danny. Get some rest. You've earned it. But Danny shook his head. Not yet, sir. Still got to check their navigation systems and structural integrity. Can't send them home if they can't steer, or if the hull's going to crack on them. Danny, you've been working for 16 hours straight. With respect, sir, so have you. Jack couldn't argue with that. He turned to Velthar, who had been watching everything with wide, disbelieving eyes. Captain, your ship is going to be fine. My people will have you fully operational within another 8 hours. You'll be able to make it home safely. Velthar felt something wet on his face and realized he was crying. In his culture, tears were rare, reserved for moments of profound emotion. He looked at this human commander, this apex predator who had traveled across space to save strangers, and felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. Commander Morrison, I must know. Your people, these 17 ships that came, is this normal for humans? Jack considered the question seriously. 17 ships responded, because 17 ships were in range to hear your call. If there had been 100 ships close enough, 100 would have come. That's just how we do things. But why? Velthar pressed. The cost, the danger, the effort. We are nothing to you. We cannot repay this debt. We have nothing you need. Jack stepped closer, and though Velthar's instincts screamed danger, he held his ground. The human commander's eyes were intense, but not cruel. They were the eyes of someone who had seen suffering and decided to fight against it. Captain Velthar, where I come from, we have a saying. No one gets left behind. It doesn't matter if you're family or stranger, friend or someone we just met. If you're in trouble and we can help, we help. That's what separates us from the darkness. That's what makes us human. Velthar understood then. These were not just predators. They were protectors. The same instincts that made them dangerous also made them defend the weak and save the helpless. They were fierce not because they loved violence, but because they refused to let others suffer when they had the power to prevent it. I would like to extend an invitation, Velthar said formally. Would you and your fleet accompany us to Sanctuary Prime, the central station of the Galactic Council? The galaxy needs to know about humanity. This cannot remain hidden. Jack looked back at his crew. At Amy helping alien crew members to their feet. At Danny arguing with another engineer about the best way to calibrate a sensor array. At Kate laughing at something Polvas had said over the communication link. His people, doing what they did best. Helping others. We'd be honored, Captain, Jack replied. I think it's time Earth introduced itself to the neighborhood. Sanctuary Prime filled the view screen of the Valiant's bridge, and Lieutenant Kate Sullivan couldn't stop staring. The station was massive beyond anything humanity had ever built. A gleaming structure that seemed to grow organically from a central core, with countless arms spiraling outward like the branches of a crystalline tree. Thousands of ships moved around it in perfectly coordinated patterns, each one unique in design and purpose. It's beautiful, Kate whispered. Commander Jack Morrison stood beside her, but his attention was on the tactical displays. His military training made him notice what was missing as much as what was present. No weapons platforms. No defense grids. No patrol ships or military escorts. The entire massive station was completely undefended. Kate, are those sensor readings correct? Jack asked quietly. She double-checked her displays and nodded. Yes, sir. No weapons detected anywhere. Not on the station. Not on any of the ships. I'm not even seeing basic defensive shields beyond what's needed for meteor protection. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Either these people were so powerful they didn't need weapons, or they had never needed to defend themselves. Given what he had learned about Captain Velthar and his crew, he suspected it was the latter. That thought was both wonderful and terrifying. The 17 human ships followed the harmonious explorer toward one of the docking arms. As they approached, Kate's communication systems lit up with messages from the station. Thousands of different species were asking questions, expressing curiosity, and sharing excitement about the newcomers. The whole station seemed to buzz with the news of first contact. Inside the station's Grand Council chamber, preparations were underway for the formal greeting. High Curator Zinara floated at the center of the chamber, her crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns across the walls. She was a being of pure thought, her consciousness housed in the beautiful mineral structure that served as her body. She had guided the Galactic Council for 300 years and had never encountered a situation quite like this. Captain Velthar had sent ahead his full report. A new species. One that came from a world so harsh it defied understanding. Beings who looked like nightmares but acted like heroes. Predators who protected instead of preyed. Zinara had read the report 3 times and still struggled to believe it. The chamber doors opened, and the human delegation entered. Zinara observed them carefully as they walked in. Jack Morrison led the group, flanked by Kate Sullivan and Dr. Lisa Harper, the fleet's chief xenobiologist. Behind them came representatives from each of the 17 ships. A display of unity and strength. The humans moved with controlled grace, their eyes taking in everything around them with sharp awareness. Zinara noticed how they positioned themselves instinctively to cover different angles of the room. How they stayed close enough to support each other but spread out enough to not present a clustered target. These were tactical movements, the behavior of beings who understood combat. Welcome to Sanctuary Prime. Zinara's voice resonated through the chamber, translated instantly into English. I am High Curator Zinara. On behalf of the Galactic Council, we greet you with peace and curiosity. Jack stepped forward and gave a respectful bow. High Curator, I'm Commander Jack Morrison, representing the United Nations of Earth and the human species. We're honored to be here and grateful for your welcome. The formal ceremony proceeded with speeches and exchanges of information. Representatives from 17 different council species asked questions, and the humans answered as best they could. But Zinara noticed something in their responses. The humans were being polite, but they were also being careful. They were measuring the council, just as the council was measuring them. After the ceremony, Zinara invited the human delegation to a private meeting. In a smaller chamber, away from the crowds and cameras, the real conversation could begin. Commander Morrison, I have read Captain Velthar's report multiple times. Zinara began. But I must hear from you directly. Tell me about Earth. Dr. Lisa Harper stepped forward. She was a scientist who had spent her life studying alien environments and extremophile life. She had prepared extensively for this moment, but she still felt nervous about how the council would react to the truth. High Curator, Earth is what we classify as a Class 12 death world. Lisa began. The gravity is one standard, which I understand is significantly higher than most council worlds. Our atmosphere contains a highly reactive gas called oxygen, which is toxic to many forms of life but necessary for our biology. We have extreme temperature variations, ranging from -40 to +50 degrees Celsius in inhabited areas. She paused, watching the council representatives shift uncomfortably. Then she continued. Our world has active geology, meaning earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are common. We have severe weather patterns, including hurricanes, tornadoes, and monsoons, that can destroy entire cities. We have thousands of species of predators, many of which see humans as prey. We have diseases, parasites, and bacteria that constantly evolve to kill us. And we have scarcity. Andy, resources on Earth are limited, which means competition for survival. The chamber was silent. Several council representatives looked physically ill. One species, the Vexarii, a proud aquatic race, seemed especially disturbed. How is this possible? Asked High Curator Zinara. How did your species not simply die out? Kate Sullivan spoke up. Because we adapted. We learned. We evolved not just physically, but socially. We formed groups, tribes, nations. We learned to work together because alone, we would die. Earth taught us that cooperation is survival. But you are predators, one council member pointed out, its voice filled with fear. You have the eyes of hunters, the build of fighters. How can predators cooperate? Quote, Jack Morrison decided it was time for complete honesty. Yes, we're predators. Our ancestors hunted to survive. We still have those instincts. But we also have something else. We have empathy. We have the ability to feel what others feel. To understand their pain. Being able to hunt doesn't mean we have to. Being strong doesn't mean we have to hurt the weak. In fact, our strength gives us the responsibility to protect those who can't protect themselves. Zinara processed this information, her crystalline body flickering with complex light patterns that indicated deep thought. She accessed her historical databases, searching through 8,000 years of council records. Commander Morrison, in our 8,000 years of spacefaring civilization, we have never encountered war. We have never faced aggression from another species. Every race in the Council evolved on worlds like mine, peaceful places with abundant resources and no predators. We have no military, no weapons, no concept of organized violence. We have been extraordinarily fortunate, or extraordinarily isolated, Jack said quietly. The room went silent again. Zinara understood the implication immediately. You believe we have simply been lucky. That somewhere in the galaxy, there are species that are not peaceful. High Curator. With respect, the universe is vast. The idea that every intelligent species evolved in paradise seems statistically unlikely. You've been in a safe region of space. But that safety might not last forever. Another council member, a being made of flowing liquid metal, spoke up. What are you suggesting, human? Jack looked at his team, then back at the council. I'm not suggesting anything yet. But I am asking a question. What happens if you encounter a hostile species? What happens when someone comes to Sanctuary Prime with weapons instead of words? What happens when beings who don't value peace show up at your door? The council had no answer. The question had never been asked before because the situation had never arisen. They had lived in their safe bubble for so long that they had forgotten danger could exist. High Curator Zinara made a decision that would change galactic history. Commander Morrison, I have a proposal. The Council has technology, knowledge, and resources that humanity lacks. We have mapped millions of systems, cataloged countless forms of life, and developed science that your species has not yet discovered. But we lack something that you possess naturally. The understanding of how to face danger. The ability to protect. Jack waited, knowing what was coming. Would humanity consider a defensive pact with the Galactic Council? We would share our knowledge and technology freely. In return, we ask for your guidance in matters of security and defense. Not to make us warriors, but to help us survive if the peace we have enjoyed ever ends. Jack thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who had struggled and fought and survived on their harsh world. He thought about the United Nations space fleet, built to protect humanity's colonies and shipping lanes. He thought about the responsibility that came with strength. High Curator, I cannot make this decision alone. I need to contact Earth and present this proposal to our government. But personally, I believe this is the beginning of something important. Humanity has always believed that the strong should protect the weak. If the Council is willing to trust us, we're willing to stand with you. Zinara's crystal body pulsed with warm, grateful light. Then, let us begin this partnership with understanding. Tell us more about Earth, about humans, about your history. Help us understand what shapes a species of protectors. And so the humans began to teach the Council about Deathworlds, about survival, about the cost of peace, and the price of protection. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous-looking beings were exactly who you wanted on your side when danger came calling. 3 weeks had passed since the initial meeting at Sanctuary Prime, and not everyone in the Galactic Council was convinced that humanity should be trusted. The Vexarii, An aquatic species known for their pride and ancient lineage had voiced the strongest objections. They had built what they called a defensive fleet over the past 1,000 years, though it had never seen actual combat. The very idea that these newcomers, these Deathworld primitives, could offer them protection felt insulting. Commander Kelvas, the leader of the Vex-RE fleet, floated in his tank aboard his flagship, the Eternal Tide. His sleek body rippled with displeasure as he reviewed the Council's proposal. A test, they called it. A joint military exercise to demonstrate capabilities. The Vex-RE would protect a simulated civilian convoy through a dangerous region of space, and the humans would do the same on a parallel course. Whoever performed better would prove their worth. On the bridge of the UNS Sentinel, Captain Ryan Foster reviewed the same mission parameters with a mixture of amusement and concern. Ryan was a veteran of the Colony Defense Forces. A tall man with sharp eyes and a reputation for tactical brilliance. He understood what this exercise really was. It was not about proving human capability. It was about letting the Vex-REI save face while accepting human help. "Sir, the Void Reach system is no joke," said Lieutenant Sam Bennett, the Sentinel's tactical officer. "Spatial anomalies, radiation storms, debris fields that shift unpredictably. We'll have our hands full just navigating it, let alone protecting a convoy." Ryan nodded. "That's the point, Sam. They want to see us work under pressure. Make sure all ships are ready. This needs to go perfectly." The human fleet assembled at the edge of the Void Reach system consisted of 12 ships, including the Sentinel, the Valiant under Jack Morrison's command, and the Endeavour commanded by Greg Palmer. The Vex-RE had brought an equal number of vessels, their ships elegant and streamlined, built for beauty as much as function. The civilian convoys were made up of automated cargo ships programmed to follow specific routes through the system. The goal was simple: guide them safely through the hazards and reach the far side. The first fleet to complete the transit with all ships intact would be declared the winner. Commander Kelvas broadcast a message to the human fleet. "Humans, may the superior force prevail. The Vex-RE have been protecting Council shipping lanes for 1,000 years. You will find us more than capable." Ryan smiled and keyed his response. "Looking forward to a good exercise, Commander. May both our fleets perform well." The exercise began with both fleets entering the Void Reach system from opposite ends. Immediately, the challenges became apparent. Radiation storms swept through the region in unpredictable patterns, forcing constant course corrections. Spatial anomalies created pockets where sensors failed and navigation became guesswork. Debris fields, remnants of ancient stellar collisions, drifted through the shipping lanes like deadly obstacles. The human fleet moved with practiced coordination. Each ship maintained precise spacing, creating a protective formation around their convoy. When radiation storms appeared, they rotated positions to shield the cargo vessels with their own hulls. When debris threatened, point defense systems engaged with surgical precision, destroying only what was necessary to clear the path. Nicole Cruz, the weapons officer aboard the Sentinel, worked with calm efficiency. Her targeting solutions were perfect, never wasting energy, never overcommitting to a threat. Beside her, Danny Clark monitored power distribution, routing energy where it was needed most, predicting problems before they occurred. The Vex-RE fleet, meanwhile, struggled. Their ships were fast and elegant, but their crews had never faced real danger. When a radiation storm appeared, they scattered instead of forming a protective screen. When debris approached, they fired wildly, wasting energy and creating more fragments. Their beautiful ships were not designed for this kind of work. Commander Kelvas watched his tactical displays with growing frustration. His crews were panicking, making mistakes that would never happen in simulations. Real stress, real consequences, even simulated ones, revealed the truth. They were not prepared for this. Then, everything changed. Long-range sensors aboard both the human and Vex-REI flagships detected something emerging from deep space. Unknown ships, dozens of them, approaching at high speed. The vessels were heavily armed, their designs brutal and efficient. These were warships, real ones, built for conquest and violence. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan, monitoring communications from the Valiant, intercepted a transmission from the unknown fleet. Her face went pale as she translated it. "Commander Morrison, you need to hear this," she said urgently. Jack leaned over her station and listened to the translated message. It was a demand for immediate surrender. All ships were to cut engines and prepare to be boarded. All cargo would be seized. All crews would be taken as slaves. Resistance would result in immediate destruction. "How many ships?" Jack asked quietly. 37, sir. They outnumber our combined fleets 3-1. On the Eternal Tide, Commander Kelvas received the same transmission. His body went rigid with fear. This was not a simulation. This was real. Actual hostile forces were attacking, and his fleet had no idea how to respond. They had weapons. Yes. But none of his crew had ever fired them at a living target. They had trained for ceremonies and displays, not war. "All ships, retreat," Kelvas ordered. "Fall back to Sanctuary Prime. Request emergency assistance." The Vex Arii fleet began to turn, abandoning the civilian convoy they were supposed to protect. In their panic, they forgot their purpose, forgot their mission. They only thought of survival. Ryan Foster watched the Vex Arii retreat and made his decision in seconds. "All human ships, this is Captain Foster. New mission priority. Protect both convoys. All civilian vessels are now under our protection. Move to intercept hostile fleet. Weapons free." Across the human fleet, captains acknowledged the orders without hesitation. The 12 human ships changed course, placing themselves directly between the Marauders and the helpless cargo vessels. The Sentinel led the formation, with the Valiant and Endeavor on its flanks. Jack Morrison opened a channel to the hostile fleet. His voice was calm, but carried an edge that transcended translation. "Unknown vessels. This is Commander Jack Morrison of the United Nations Space Fleet. The ships you are targeting are under our protection. Stand down immediately, or you will be engaged." The response from the Marauder captain was laughter. His face appeared on the view screen. A reptilian being, with scales and cold eyes, that had seen countless raids succeed. "Humans? We have never heard of you. You are outnumbered and outgunned. This is your only chance. Run away like the others, or die, protecting cargo that means nothing to you." Ryan Foster took a deep breath and gave the order that would echo through galactic history. "All ships, engage. Protect the convoy at all costs." The human fleet opened fire with devastating precision. Unlike the Marauders' expectations, the humans did not panic or scatter. They moved as one coordinated unit, each ship supporting the others, creating overlapping fields of fire that turned space into a killing zone. Nicole Cruz's weapons sang as they found their targets. She did not aim to destroy, not yet. She disabled engines, shattered weapons systems, crippled shields. The Marauders had expected prey, but they found apex predators instead. The Marauder captain's laughter died as his fleet began to fall apart under the human assault. These were not random merchants or peaceful explorers. These were warriors who knew exactly what they were doing. "All ships, focus fire on the lead vessels," the Marauder captain screamed. "Break their formation." Quote, but the human formation did not break. When the Endeavor took damage to its port shields, the Valiant and 2 other ships moved to cover it, their own shields overlapping to protect their wounded companion. When the Marauders tried to slip past toward the convoy, they found the Sentinel waiting, its weapons ready, and its captain unflinching. Danny Clark worked frantically in engineering, rerouting power to keep shields strong and weapons charged. Amy Hughes coordinated damage control teams across the fleet through encrypted channels, ensuring that injured ships stayed in the fight. The battle raged for 47 minutes. The Marauders, despite their numerical advantage, found themselves outmatched at every turn. The humans fought with a coordination born from centuries of warfare on their harsh homeworld, refined through decades of space combat against pirates and raiders. Finally, with half his fleet disabled and the rest fleeing, the Marauder captain tried one last, desperate move. He turned his flagship toward the civilian convoy, all weapons charged for a final devastating strike. If he could not have the cargo, he would destroy it, out of spite. Ryan Foster saw the move coming and made a split-second decision. Sentinel to all ships, follow my lead. The Sentinel accelerated directly toward the Marauder flagship, placing itself between the hostile ship and the convoy. Behind Ryan, his crew worked without words, trusting their captain completely. The Marauder fired everything he had at the Sentinel. The human ship's shields flared bright as they absorbed the punishment, holding just long enough. Then the Sentinel returned fire. A single concentrated burst that severed the Marauder flagship's main weapons array and crippled its engines. The battle was over. The Marauder fleet drifted in space, disabled but intact. The human fleet maintained their protective formation around both convoys. Not a single civilian vessel damaged. Commander Kelvus watched from a safe distance, his body trembling. The humans had done in less than an hour what the Vexarii could never have accomplished. They had protected not just their own convoy, but the Vexarii convoy as well. They had faced an enemy that outnumbered them 3-1, and won without losing a single ship. Ryan Foster opened a channel to the Marauder captain. Your fleet is disabled. Your weapons are offline. Surrender now, and we will offer medical assistance and fair treatment under our laws. Continue fighting, and we will destroy you. Choose wisely. The Marauder captain looked at his ruined fleet and made the only choice he could. We surrender. As human boarding parties secured the disabled Marauder ships, Captain Velthar transmitted a message that reached every corner of the Galactic Council. Today we witnessed what we asked to see. We asked for proof of human capability. We received something far greater. We received proof of human character. They are strong enough to destroy, yet they choose to protect. They are fierce enough to terrify, yet they are gentle enough to save. The galaxy needs humanity. The council chamber at Sanctuary Prime had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 17 council species filled the seats, while countless others watched through broadcast feeds across the galaxy. The aftermath of the battle in the Void Reach system had sent shockwaves through the peaceful civilization that had never before witnessed real combat. High Curator Zinara floated at the center of the chamber, her crystalline body pulsing with complex patterns of light that betrayed her troubled thoughts. Before her stood Commander Jack Morrison and Captain Ryan Foster, along with representatives from all 12 human ships that had fought in the battle. Behind them, in a separate section, sat Commander Kelvas of the Vexarii fleet. His aquatic form slumped in defeat. The session began with a complete review of the battle. Holographic displays showed every moment, every decision, every exchange of fire. The council members watched in silence, many of them looking away during the violent portions. They had lived their entire lives without seeing warfare. Now they understood what it truly meant. When the review concluded, Zinara addressed the chamber. For 8,000 years, the Galactic Council has existed in peace. We believed this peace was the natural state of the universe, that all intelligent life would naturally choose cooperation over conflict. The events of 3 days ago have shown us the dangerous naivety of that belief. She turned her attention to the human delegation. Commander Morrison, Captain Foster, your fleet faced an enemy that outnumbered you significantly. You could have retreated as the Vexarii did. You could have protected only your assigned convoy. Instead, you chose to defend both groups of civilian ships, and you did so without losing a single vessel or life. I must understand your decision. Why risk everything for strangers and a test that no longer mattered? Ryan Foster stepped forward to answer. His uniform still bore scorch marks from the battle, and he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had been tested and not found wanting. High Curator. On Earth we have a concept called duty. It means doing what is right regardless of cost or convenience. Those civilian ships contained cargo that people needed. The crews operating them trusted that someone would keep them safe. It doesn't matter that they were automated ships or that this started as an exercise. The moment real danger appeared, our duty became clear. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. A council member from a small insectoid species raised a delicate limb. But Commander Foster, you risked your lives for material goods. Surely survival is more important than cargo. Jack Morrison answered this time. With respect, it wasn't about the cargo. It was about the principle. If we abandon our responsibilities the moment things get dangerous, then what good are we? If we only protect others when it's safe and easy, then we're not really protecting anyone at all. Commander Kelvas suddenly rose from his seat, his body language showing deep shame. Zinara granted permission with a gesture. I must confess the truth to this council, Kelvas said, his voice heavy. The Vex REI claim to have maintained a defensive fleet for 1,000 years. We have beautiful ships, powerful weapons, and extensive training. But it has all been ceremonial. Performance art. When real danger appeared, we fled. We abandoned the convoy we swore to protect. We proved ourselves to be cowards. The chamber erupted in murmurs. This was unprecedented honesty. Especially from the proud Vex REI. The humans taught me something in that battle, Kelvas continued. Having weapons does not make you a warrior. Having ships does not make you a protector. These things require courage, discipline, and willingness to sacrifice for others. The Vex REI have the tools, but lack the spirit. We need to learn from those who understand what protection truly means. Ryan Foster walked over to Kelvas, and the entire chamber went quiet. The human captain extended his hand in the gesture of respect humanity used for greetings and agreements. Commander Kelvas, running from overwhelming force isn't cowardice, it's tactics. You preserved your fleet to fight another day. What matters now is what you choose to do with this knowledge. If you want to learn, we'll teach you. If you want to train, we'll train with you. Building true defenders takes time, but everyone can learn. Kelvas looked at the offered hand, understanding the gesture from the cultural briefings his people had studied. He reached out with his own manipulator appendage and grasped the human's hand. It was a small gesture, but it represented a massive shift in galactic politics. Zinara watched this exchange and felt something she had not experienced in her 300 years of existence, hope mixed with urgency. The galaxy was bigger and more dangerous than the Council had ever imagined. But perhaps they had found the allies they needed to face that reality. The Galactic Council must now make a decision, Zinara announced. We can no longer pretend that peace is guaranteed. The Marauder fleet that attacked was just one group. There may be others, perhaps entire empires built on conquest and violence. We need to be able to defend ourselves and those under our protection. She turned to the human delegation. Commander Morrison, 3 weeks ago I proposed a defensive pact between humanity and the Council. You said you needed to consult with Earth. Have you received a response? Jack nodded and pulled out a data tablet. High Curator. The United Nations has reviewed your proposal extensively. They have authorized me to present Earth's official response. The chamber went completely silent. Every being present understood they were witnessing a moment that would be remembered for millennia. The United Nations of Earth accepts the defensive pact with the Galactic Council. We agree to share our knowledge of defense, tactics, and security. We agree to help train Council species who wish to develop protective capabilities. And we agree to stand with the Council against external threats as long as the Council upholds the principles of peace, justice, and protection of the innocent. Zinara's crystal body blazed with brilliant light. And in return, the Galactic Council will share freely our scientific knowledge, our technological advances, and our resources. We will work together to ensure that both humanity and the Council species can thrive in safety. The chamber erupted in approval. Representatives from every species signaled their agreement in their various ways. Even the Vex Arii, through Kelvas, voted in favor. But Xenara raised one more point. There is an additional matter. The Council has discussed creating a new role, one that has never existed before. We propose the formation of the Council Defense Force, a unified military organization tasked with protecting all Council species and territories. We believe humanity should lead this force. This caused more murmurs. Giving military authority to a species they had just met was unprecedented. But after what they had witnessed in the Void Reach system, it also made sense. Jack and Ryan exchanged glances. This was a huge responsibility, one that would change humanity's role in the galaxy forever. High Curator, Jack said carefully, humanity is honored by this trust. But we need to be clear about what this means. A defense force is not an army of conquest. It exists only to protect, never to attack. It must operate under strict rules of engagement and answer to civilian authority. If the Council agrees to these principles, then, yes, we will help build and lead this force. These terms are acceptable, Xenara confirmed. The Council Defense Force will be a shield, not a sword. It will protect the vulnerable and maintain peace, but never be used for aggression or expansion. As the formal agreements were signed and recorded, Amy Hughes stood with Danny Clark and Kate Sullivan at the back of the chamber, watching history unfold. "Can you believe this?" Danny whispered. 3 months ago, we were on patrol duty worrying about asteroid pirates. Now, we're founding a galactic defense force. Kate smiled. Just goes to show that you never know when answering a distress call might change everything. Amy nodded thoughtfully. Captain Velthar sent out that beacon, thinking he was going to die. Instead, he brought 2 civilizations together. Makes you think about how small actions can have huge consequences. Outside the council chamber, preparations were already beginning. Human military advisors would be assigned to every council species that requested training. Joint exercises would be scheduled. New ships would be designed combining council technology with human tactical knowledge. The defense force would start small, but grow as more species developed the capability and will to protect others. Captain Velthar found Jack Morrison in one of the station's observation lounges, looking out at the stars. The alien captain approached slowly, still somewhat intimidated by the human's presence, but no longer afraid. "Commander Morrison, may I speak with you?" Jack turned and smiled. "Of course, Captain. And please, call me Jack. I think we're past the need for formal titles between us." Velthar settled into a seat designed for his species' physiology. "I have been thinking about the day you rescued us. I was so frightened of you and your crew. You looked like monsters from our ancient nightmares. But you were the kindest beings I had ever encountered." "We get that a lot," Jack said with a gentle laugh. "Humanity learned a long time ago that how you look and what you do are completely different things. Some of the worst people in our history looked perfectly harmless. Some of the greatest heroes looked terrifying. Your species has suffered greatly on your harsh world," Velthar observed, "yet you did not become cruel or selfish. How did you maintain compassion despite such hardship?" Jack was quiet for a moment, considering the question. Maybe because of the hardship, not despite it. When you know what it's like to struggle, to be afraid, to face death, you don't want others to experience that pain. Every human knows what it means to need help, so when we see others in trouble, we remember our own struggles, and we act. Velthar looked out at the stars, at the ships moving peacefully around Sanctuary Prime. "The galaxy is going to change now, isn't it?" "Yes," Jack agreed. "But change isn't always bad. The Council will learn to protect itself. You'll be safer, stronger, more prepared for whatever comes. And humanity will learn from you. Your science, your culture, your perspective. We'll both be better for knowing each other." "I hope you are right, Jack Morrison. I hope this partnership brings the peace and security we all desire." Jack stood and offered his hand again. "It will, Captain." Because when someone sends out a distress call, the entire fleet responds. That's the kind of galaxy we're building together. As the two captains shook hands, 17 human ships maintained their orbit around Sanctuary Prime, silent guardians watching over the peaceful station. Soon there would be more ships, more species, learning to protect rather than flee. The galaxy was waking up to dangers it had never faced before, but it was also discovering that the strongest shields came from those who had learned to survive the hardest worlds. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. But that was exactly what it needed.